Check, check, check. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Wyndham Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting for September 18th, 2019. It is 6:30 p.m. and we are in the Raymond Broadcast Modular. Mr. Howell?
Sorry, Kate Bricks,
Present.
Eric Colby, Janie Cummings,
Present.
Don Dillon,
Here.
Marge Gavoni,
Here.
Pete Hensler,
Here.
Anna Keeney,
Here.
Kate Levier, Scott McLean.
Here.
That's it.
Will you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Madam Chair, yes, there is an adjustment to the agenda, and it is on the second page of your agendas, and everyone should have an updated copy that was with your packets. And it involves a presentation that we needed to put in tonight for Bill Hanson for the State Revolving Renovation Fund. We were under a very, very tight timeline, and this is an application process that the district has not had the opportunity to apply for at least the last 10 years.
Oh.
And one component that we came across is a need for the board to approve submitting an application to that process. And Bill's going to be here a little bit later to talk about that. But normally we have an opportunity for the board to hear information and then vote. But given the timeline the state has given us in the application process and the board's meeting timeline, again, we're going to have the opportunity to hear some about that tonight. So that's the one adjustment.
Okay, thank you very much. It's time for public input, and seeing no public, there won't be input. Okay, now it's time for, I'll take a motion about the Maine School Boards Association Annual Delegate.
I move to approve the appointment of a school board member as a delegate to the Delegate Assembly of the Maine School Boards Association.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Oh,
We didn't appoint him.
we didn't appoint anybody. Who's going to be appointed?
I'd like to nominate
Can I ask?
Ms. Cummings.
I'll second that.
Of course you will. Okay, now can there be board discussion? How's that?
Who's going?
Are
Can
there
we
any
find
other
out who's
nominations?
Who's
going?
going? Oh, are there, yeah.
We
Are
don't
there
know
any
who's
other
going.
nominations?
Funny.
You're cute.
Protocol procedure,
Yes,
right?
I know. Are there any other nominations?
I'm delighted that you're representing us
Oh, thank you so much.
I am thrilled.
at the
I'm ecstatic.
MSBA annual meeting.
And I'd be glad to, if you would like to take over for this delegate. No, okay. All those in favor of me being a delegate to the MSMA, MSBA Delegate Assembly? That would be not a unanimous vote. Yes, you have a question?
No.
Okay. All those opposed? No. Motion carries. All right, now.
Just for clarification for the minutes, are
Yes.
you abstaining or?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
How's that? Okay, now could I have a motion about teaching controversial issues?
I move to approve the first reading of teaching about controversial sensitive issues, policy IMB.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
This is a new policy, as is the next one, and they are both a result of discussion that we had at our last meeting, and we had requested that the superintendent put together a process, and he's going to explain that right now.
Sure, and just to echo again, I think the process we all went through the last couple board meetings on hearing some concerns from the board members and community members about how controversial issues are addressed and taught within our school district. It's been a good pause for us to be able to then take a look at, again, how do we treat those items. So Here's what's going to be happening, and some of it's happened already. So number one is the controversial issues policy that you're going to be looking at tonight. As Kate mentioned, each district had their own prior to consolidation, but there was not an RSU 14 controversial issues policy and how that was taught. So one component is that first reading tonight. Second component, there are policies that support that, and a couple of policies you're going to be looking at tonight also help to support that controversial issues policy. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll have the opportunity to meet with the Wyndham Middle School teaching staff as a follow-up to our discussion about CNN 10, as a discussion about controversial issues and how we handle that in the classroom, so that everyone has an opportunity to ask whatever questions that they might have, and to be able to understand some of the policy and also kind of understand the discussions that have happened at the board level. Also, we'll be meeting with the administrative team. When I had sent this to the board, I'd hoped to have had it on the agenda for the meeting that happened yesterday. Christine and I overfilled that agenda, and we're not able to give it the time that it was due, so we're going to be moving that to the October 1st meeting, which is coming right up. And then that will give an opportunity for each administrative team member to go back to their building leadership teams, talk about the controversial issues policy, how do we address controversial issues in the classroom, and how do we ensure that all sides of a viewpoint are actually addressed within the curriculum and also are addressed within the opportunities and the discussions that happen in our classrooms. And then lastly, given just some concerns voiced from the board and community members, looking at our resources, and if we are going to be doing some current events, can we work with our librarians and our media specialists to maybe look at ones that might be identified as a little bit more down the middle than some of the other resources that are out there. And there are various review sites that put all the different media sources in different places. Discovery Education is one that seems to be going right down the middle when it comes to how news is presented, and doesn't necessarily even have a network connection to it. So that's what we're working on, and we will be looking to come back to the board probably middle October to report on the update and the progress and just some of the feedback. And I think that will also kind of go along nicely with the adoption of this policy and the policies that support it.
Okay. Dawn?
Can you explain topic 6 a little more in detail?
Sure. Under topic 6, there is a policy that's been in the district for a long, long time, which is exemption from required instruction. And given someone's particular religious, moral, or philosophical beliefs on a particular topic, and this could be anything from a frog dissection to a topic that's being done in class, that they would work with the building administrator on alternate activities or topics for that particular form of instruction.
If you had many complaints about a certain topic, what would be the avenue that the parent would take to bring that to you?
Yep, so the best way to go through would be policy IMB, which is how materials are selected for the district. Very similar to, not IMB, IJJ. Sorry, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
policy IJJ, which is the one we most recently went through with the topic that we did for them to be able to share their concerns.
Okay.
Yep, and there's an avenue for that. And I think the exhibit they use is IJJE.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Marge?
Staying on 6, I'm just curious, I know a lot of these are presented and parents are not aware of what was presented till after the fact. How do you opt your child out?
I see what you're saying.
Oh, I didn't.
You know what I'm saying? If something's being presented, you don't know about it till your child comes home and says, oh, here's what I saw today. There's not approval papers or anything that goes home to parents prior to or notifications in all cases, only for things that are really, I know, extra sensitive, but for the things,
So you're exactly, 99% of our curriculum is what you're going to find been approved through Maine Learning Results or through Common Core, which has been adopted as Maine Learning Results. So your chances of finding something like that, I think probably what you're more likely to find might be a religious exemption. The exact moment at which that happens and being able to inform somebody, typically, if there's a super sensitive issue and it's being sent to parents, usually teachers will give a heads up that that's coming. One thing that's difficult with this policy is that something that might be sensitive to you is not sensitive to me,
no.
and being able to understand what truly is that sensitive topic. So in the cases of, let's say, sex education that might be happening in classroom, typically there's some notification going to parents, this is going to be the topic. Your particular individual beliefs on a comparative religions class at the high school may be a little bit different to predict who might take issue, and in those cases, all sides of different religions would be presented to students as part of that coursework.
So this it actually becomes a case-by-case type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to react after we find out it's a problem sometimes. I get it. I mean, there's no way you can't send everything home.
Right, or if you know there's a book that
Right.
they're reading that you know.
You can notify them right
Right.
away. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved. Oh, Scott?
I have one question.
Yes?
Paragraph 2, in the capacity as a facilitator, it is the educator's responsibility to identify various points of view on an issue and to make certain that differing opinions are treated with respect. How do you possibly police that? That seems like almost an impossible job.
I think part of that is when it is explained to the staff. It's just an exclamation point that that's how they proceed in their instruction, clarifying that that's how they have to handle those.
Okay, so we need to entrust in our staff that they're presenting all different points of view.
I think we're at a unique
It is.
spot right now because
Yes.
this is new
Mhm.
and the other one is new. And as Chris has mentioned, he's going to be meeting with staff
Mhm.
to really discuss this. And this is going to be discussed, I'm assuming, with the A-team, and they're going to go back to their staff and explain this.
Okay,
So that we're on the same page.
right.
Okay.
So once you meet with the staff and the A-team, I'm assuming that you'll maybe get input from them as to if any changes need to be made for a second reading. Would that take place? I'm not part of policy, so I really don't know how the process
Certainly,
works.
we welcome any kind of feedback.
Okay.
Right, I guess for purposes of this policy though is, number 2 is good instruction.
Mhm.
That should be best practice, that we're inviting all points of view.
Right.
Because that really is the role of the teacher, to allow kids to explore their own views
Yep.
and to form their opinion without just adopting the opinion of somebody else.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I'm assuming in the other policy that it is, there's a time frame and process. I'm not, if a parent is not happy with certain forms of.
Yep,
that-
so
that
policy IJJ has a process lined out with, it starts with the person, there's a form to fill out, what particular issues that they have with the material. That's then brought, really starts at the teacher's level, works the administrative level, then goes to a committee level, goes to superintendent level, and then comes to a board level. So there's 4 opportunities to be heard and on that particular item.
And while that's going on, if the parent had an issue, that this is explaining that they can be exempt from.
So
taking
if a
that.
parent, they can request exemption at that point. According to the policy, any time that a material's going through that challenge process, it does not get removed from the collection or from the curriculum at that point.
Right, okay.
That seems fair.
Great questions.
Are we all set then? Okay. So, all those in favor of the first reading? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Could I have a motion for evaluation?
I move to approve the first reading of evaluation of instructional programs policy IL.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any board discussion?
Again, this is a new policy that assists in this whole controversial issue discussion. As you read it, it's a short policy, but I think it's important, and I'm pretty happy that we have it. And I'm just going to read it, actually, because
Yep.
I think it's
Very-
important enough.
Yeah.
The evaluation of the instructional program shall be a major responsibility of the superintendent and his and her staff, his staff, it's not her, sorry, it is a he, with annual reports being presented to the board to enable judgments to be made on the success of the program. No instructional program should be considered as the final answer, and all school programs shall be under study by the staff. Moreover, the superintendent is expected to lead the staff, community, and board in the development and ongoing review of board-adopted criteria and standards by which to measure the results of the instructional program.
Board discussion?
Yep.
Scott?
I was hoping that I could just get clarification on the last sentence of that first paragraph, if you would, please. Somebody?
No instructional program?
Yes, that is correct. Yep, that one.
Right?
May I?
Yes.
Please.
Basically, it's this, is that if the district decides to adopt a program, that doesn't mean it's the last time we've dealt with math.
Okay.
It should be, this is a continuous process, and something that may work for a program or set of instructional strategies may be great, but then it may, based on the differences that you have in students, may not be the right answer, and so it's time to move on to something else. So it's, honestly, it means you're never done.
Right. Okay.
Okay, anybody else? It's been moved and seconded, all those.
You have something? He
Scott?
does.
You do,
I
right?
do. I'm just trying to formulate how to
Oh.
say. I guess I'm wondering what the definition of an instructional program is. Like, you said the math program, so that's pretty broad because, I mean, you could narrow this down to like, we're not looking at class levels, like how successful classes are. I mean,
No,
this is
no.
more of a broader, so I'm just wondering where we draw the line as to what's being evaluated.
So the way that I interpret the policy would be, we're just gone through a math implementation. Let's just use math an example. And so high school is using CPM math. And they're working through it, they're doing an implementation. Doesn't mean that we're done with high school math. This is something we should be continuing. In fact, we'd have an annual achievement report coming up, continuing to give the board progress on how that's going. Is it making an impact? And my view on it is if it's not making an impact, then we move on to something else that's going to make a better impact for us.
So would a program be like basically your math, your writing, your science? I mean, your basic.
But it could also be you have a college and career counselor at Wyndham High School that you have through a grant. Is that particular program that's offered to students and the support, is it continuing to do what it needs to do, or should we move on? So really this policy advocates for continuous evaluation of all the things that we do to make sure that they're meeting their intended outcome or need, and if they're not, then we're about continuous improvement because we've got kids in front of us that need that help and support.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the first reading? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Could I have a motion about revision?
Sure. I move to approve the revision to student assessment, local assessment system policy ILA, which I can't find.
Which is in
On the back.
Right on the back side of that one you just did.
Oh, that's fine.
all the drafts are.
It's minor,
Just
but on the first page of this policy, in red, we just wanted to make that change so that we're very current. We like to be current.
Just for the public's sake.
So what it says is neither, the original language was let's see, the header is the following general principles and practices apply to the local assessment system. And letter E says neither the New England Common Assessment Program, which we're striking because we're not using that, and we put in state assessments, which gives us a little bit more leeway.
Mr. Howell, we don't have any discussion.
I missed the second, I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, who seconded that?
I did.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of this revision? Okay. So, could I have a motion about the second reading of school volunteer policy?
I'm on a little roll. I move to approve the second reading of the school volunteers policy KIB.
Been moved and
Seconded.
seconded. Board discussion.
This is the second reading, but I want to turn this over to Christine. One of the things that she put together, which is extremely valuable and will be an exhibit, which we don't vote on, but it will be attached to the policy, is, and it's in your packet, it is the volunteer handbook. And she worked really hard on this so that, and I'm going to let her talk about it instead of me going on and on. So I'm going to let you talk about it.
Sure, so the purpose of this, which was shared with the administrative team at our recent meeting, the purpose really, I see three parts to that. The consistent information dissemination out to the community, making sure that that message is clear and consistent and aligns with the policy. There's a packet that all schools can distribute, and it would be expected that they would distribute. There's clarity then around the policy language, and then really the emphasis being to strengthen that partnership between school and community, families who are actively involved in the school, and community members who want to be more involved in the life of the school. And so if you turn to the first page, there's a welcome note from the administrative team, and then frequently asked questions. What is a volunteer? Purpose of the program, opportunities. It directs them to the policy to see a list of examples of how they could volunteer in a school. How do I sign up? Again, referring them to the exhibits, the forms they would need to fill out to walk through the appropriate background check. What should I know about being a volunteer? The confidentiality piece, tying into the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act so that they have the information around confidentiality, student interactions. And so this just provides all of the district administrators with that consistent message and a packet that is handed to volunteers, prospective volunteers. So they have everything right there, easy to read and fill out. So this is a draft and a piece that we're going to be looking at as a team.
Thank you. Wait, we've had a chance to read it carefully, and it's very well done. So we appreciate your efforts, Christine. Any board discussion? Yes?
I just have a question. I apologize if I missed this during the first reading.
Are you on the policy now?
Yes, I'm talking about the
Okay.
policy.
All right.
The packet is fantastic.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it is great.
Nice job. As far as the policy goes, right near the last page on the packet here, the school unit will provide liability insurance protection for volunteers while performing assigned services. Liability insurance, can you give me a little bit more information as far as what that entails, what that would encompass? Is that is not
Oh.
workers' comp related injuries or anything like
Nope,
that?
that is just coverage for you if you are performing, much like we cover employees, if you're performing your duties and someone makes a complaint against you.
Okay, all right. What happens if a volunteer gets hurt while performing functions that has been assigned to them?
We would refer that on to our insurance company,
Okay.
and they would work with their insurance company carrier and do what insurance companies do and work it out.
Okay. All right, I was just curious, because that sentence there made me kind of think about that. You know, what possibly happens, and are we liable? Is there any liability, you know, for us if they get hurt while performing a assigned school task?
I think we're just as liable as we would be if we had a visitor in the school and they slipped and fell on something that was happening, or, you know, a wet floor or something else.
Okay.
It would be under the exact same thing.
Okay.
Or if somebody tripped and spilled something on a child, and it would be much like we cover an employee for that.
But it would not count as a OSHA recordable against us because it's technically not an employee?
I would need to check on that with MEMIC.
I'm
for
curious
that.
about that.
I can't speak to the OSHA piece, but I can tell you from an insurance standpoint, it would be like third-party liability. So just like if you slip and fall at Walmart, they pay for your, you know,
Okay.
something like that.
All
So
right.
usually there's a cap on it, and then your insurance picks up the rents once they get the, however their coverage works, once they get the exhaust letter.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's good to have expertise.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else want any other comments? Okay. So all those in favor of the second reading of the school volunteer policy? Opposed? Okay, revolving renovation fund projects. Mr. Hanson, you're on.
Good evening. It's great to be here. Summer's over, thank goodness. I think I could have taken another week. So we're here tonight to talk about revolving renovation. And for people who aren't familiar with that, every so often the DOE provides funding to school districts to provide improvements to facilities. The improvements are focused primarily on safety and ADA and health primarily. There is a criteria for rating 1, 2, and 3. I won't spend too much time going over that. It's been a while since the state has provided money. This fiscal year, they have appropriated $25 million for this improvement throughout the state. And the way it works is the school districts submit applications for the funding. The applications are rated, and then those that are selected are awarded. The awarded applications, the funding comes in two forms. A portion of the project funding is actually written off as a grant, and it's based off your receivership that you have. So it's like getting a nice discount on a project. So if we're a 35% receivership, and the project was for $100,000, $35,000 of that would be paid for by the state. So we would actually only be required to pay $65,000 of that $100,000. The other nice thing about it is depending on the size of the project, there's between a 5 and 10 year zero interest loan on that. So the nice thing is should we choose to finance those monies, there is no financing cost. So it has a huge advantage to help you get some work done. Quite honestly with you, this summer I've been really so busy, this has kind of snuck up a little quicker than I thought it would. And I was going over the application the other day with Superintendent Howell, and I noticed that I needed to review these projects with the board and have the board approve the submission of these projects for consideration. With any project that we have here that goes out for like this, the board has final say. Let me be really clear with that. That in the event that all the projects that we're submitting were approved, the board could decide after they're approved to accept the projects or to not. That would, you have the final say as to where we're going. So what I've done is we've looked at some of the needs the district has, and I've looked at those that I feel best fit the criteria that the revolving renovation funding is looking for. Okay, so when you see this and when we sit down and go over the 10-year capital plan, some of these things may be further down that plan and priority based on our overall priority, but based on the funding opportunities that they'd push them ahead. And this has happened before when we looked at opportunities like the Raymond Elementary School playground, the opportunity of the military helped us move that ahead. So we adjust our priorities based on where we're at. So that's kind of the background. I don't know if you've all seen the projects, but I can go over them very briefly, quickly, just so you're kind of an idea where we're at. I don't have total costs for all of you at this point in time. I have various firms and agencies working and pulling the numbers together and drawing and stuff. I will move that, I'll put that information all together, get that to Superintendent Howell, he can forward that on to you so you have all that information. And again, you'd see that again before you would approve the project.
Great.
Approval is expected, or announcements are expected in February of this next year, and we would have until the 31st of July of 2021 to complete the work. So that's kind of the backdrop. So the first two projects are really focusing on removal of asbestos, both in Field Allen and Jordan Small. Just so you're aware of that, the asbestos in Field Allen is primarily in two different areas. We have still some asbestos-containing floor tile and mastic. That's on the carpet. The carpet's been there for a long time, needs to be removed. And when you remove it, the tile comes up, so it is an abatement activity. Anytime you move or relocate asbestos, that is abatement. So it's one of those things that you have to have someone do that with. So that's what that's focused on. There are also some mudded fittings in a few areas. And if you recall, we've been renovating the inside of the building. There's one remaining wooden wall between two of the classrooms that we know has some fittings that we'll take apart and take out as part of this. So we've come a long ways from 10 years ago when we had primarily the walls were wooden and contained to where we are now. In Jordan Small, similarly, there's a fair amount of asbestos floor tile that's under carpet. The library is one space, as other classrooms. This carpet, again, is in the order of getting to be 20 years old, needs to be replaced. And it's my position that we really should work to remove asbestos whenever we can, because it will never become less expensive. And the more that you take and encapsulate it, the more you're pushing that cost, significant cost down the road, because now rather than just taking out the asbestos, now you're taking out the encapsulating material and the asbestos, and you pay by weight and volume when you dispose of materials. So again, it just adds to your cost. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I just think it's the right thing to do to get out of the learning environment. So those are two projects that we're putting in for. Also putting in for sprinkler system for the Field Allen building. It is the only building we have that is not sprinkled that has a wooden deck and wooden roof. So just food for thought. It's also I think we've transformed that building into a building that could serve us for a long time. Maybe not as a sixth grade facility, but there's other things we could do in the future, such as pre-K, adult ed. There's a lot of opportunities for that building, and the space is very welcoming. So I think it makes sense to get that building set up with an automatic sprinkler system. I believe the code in Wyndham now is either 5,000 or 7,000 square feet, and I didn't check it. I apologize if I'm incorrect on that. In either case, we're well over that square footage, and the building's over 14,000 square feet. In addition to that, we have the connector and the portables attached to it. The next projects, and there's 4 of them, all are around updating our fire alarm systems to become ADA compliant, and also to include full voice evac, and that would tie into our vigilant notification system. And so rather than just the blaring horn that you hear, it's actually an intelligent voice you can hear that gives you instruction. That might be as an active shooter in the building, take appropriate action, fire alarm, please evacuate. It's really the way that most larger educational facilities are going. It also, by ADA compliant, means our post stations would all be at ADA height, where they're not all right now. And every large space and small space would have at least a visual alarm. So in the event that you had someone who was hearing impaired that was in a bathroom, that the strobe would be going off. And that's not how we're set up right now. And finally, these systems would all be completely addressable, so that we know the problem is in room 23, smoke detector 7 is where the issue is. And right now, we're not addressable in Jordan Small or in the Raymond Elementary School. They call it the zone system. So you know there's a problem on the second floor, and you may know it's a pull station, but you don't know where it is. Okay. So there's 4 projects for that. There's a project to add filtration to the Raymond Elementary School water system. Our current water treatment system in elementary school has a water treatment system, but one of the things we discovered is there's no filtration system. So the water coming from the well goes into a storage tank, then comes into the building and through the treatment system. We do test it, but I think it's better practice in talking with our water quality folks is that we put a 2-stage filtration system in front of that, a 15 micron and then a 5 micron to take out any particles or rust before it gets to the system. Now, we're not talking about one like you might find in your house. This has to handle between 50 and 120 gallons a minute, so it's a pretty good size filter, not like you might have a household system. And the reason it's that way is that we have toilets that run off flush valves, so there's a 2-inch line that goes from the pumps up into the building, so it has to be able to handle a fair amount of capacity. The next project that we have on here is ADA accessibility to Wyndham Middle School. And what this is really addressing is ADA accessibility to the main office and the core of the building, as well as the aux gym and the gym. So it would, in essence, it would eliminate the stairs that come from the main office down to the parking area. That would be a 8-foot wide ramp. It would eliminate the stairs that come from the patio between the gym and the learning area. That would be also a ramp that comes down to that similar area. And it would provide a ramp access to that lower door on the gym. So all 3 locations would be ADA accessible. So that's really what that project's about. It also would update the bathrooms in the gym to be ADA accessible, which they are not now. Just so that you're all aware, the middle school was built in '77. That's prior to ADA. So that's one of the reasons why it's not compliant, because that wonderful word grandfather comes into play there. It was done prior to that. But we have been working to make it more compliant. We did upgrade a set of bathrooms about 5 years ago in the main floor to be ADA compliant. So this is continuing that work. The last 2 projects are around school security vestibules. Some of you who have been here for a while know that we started preliminary plans at Raymond Elementary School to move the office to the front of the building and create a vestibule very similar to we have at the primary school, at the Manchester School, that when you come in, you either can go into the office or continue into the educational space. Both in Jordan Small and RES, you come into the vestibule, you're vetted via a phone, and then you're expected to walk to the office from there. So you enter into the teaching space, what I'm calling it, because there could be kids and students there to walk to the office. These 2 projects would eliminate that, such that when you come into the main entrance, there would be a door directly into the office, and you could be vetted right there, because the receptionist or the school secretary would be there able to talk to you in that vestibule as to why you're there, what your reason is, and if it's here to drop something off or to see the principal, you actually would walk right into the office directly without actually going into educational space. So those are the projects we're proposing, because we feel it best meets the criteria that the revolving renovation funding is focusing on, which is around ADA and student safety. And at that point in time, I'm ready to answer any questions.
Okay. Just a couple questions on the asbestos. Once you do Wyndham, Field Allen, and Jordan Small, are there any other schools that
Okay.
have that?
So what I can tell you is this. The high school was abated when it was built. I have a letter from an architect that says primary school and Raymond Elementary School are asbestos free. Okay. Manchester School will have a letter that's asbestos free. So when you get down to it, middle school will still have asbestos in the classroom wing section of it. Primarily that's the mastic under all that floor tile and almost the entire classroom such. So it's really in a state and place that it has very limited exposure to children, is where it's at. And then we would still have, once we abate Jordan Small and Field Allen, those schools would be clean. So we basically would have a school campus facilities that would not have asbestos that is known based on our surveys. Also, we're really clear that whenever we do construction projects, we have to do pre-demolition surveys to make sure there isn't something hitting that's been missed, because the AHERA survey is not going to go into going to tear open that wall and look what's behind it or make sure there isn't another layer behind it, because they don't go destructive. So that's part of our process as well. So I guess I've taken a long way to answer your question, but we would, other than the middle school, we would have asbestos-free materials based on the AHERA inspections that have been done.
And is it your opinion that this is the best plan because the middle school is not of as high a concern because where it's located?
Well, there's 2 things. Where it's located, it's less friable. Obviously, the the tile that's under the carpets in both the Field Allen School and the Jordan Small School, the carpets really need to come up because of their age. You're talking 20 years or so in Jordan Small, and at least a little maybe longer in Field Allen. So it's a cost that we have to bear in the near future. The tile is in good shape. That's in the middle school at this point in time. The VCT tile that's between that and the asbestos mastic, and the mastic isn't really friable unless you were to take a grinder to it, because it's basically a really thick, heavy glue that has some fibers in it at a low count. So it's not something that's going to get in the air unless you were to physically abrade it to cause a problem. So it's not as much a concern. And finally, the classroom wing. I'm really hoping in 5 years we don't have that anymore. So I just also think it was a great place for the school to invest resources where that likely would be invaded as part of demolition of the building.
Absolutely. And when that project is being done, if it was to be approved, when would that be done? Like summertime?
So
children wouldn't be.
We would have to do that during the summertime. Okay. And just to be clear, like for those two projects, there will be some cost to the district because they're not going to pay to put the new carpet and flooring down.
Right.
But that's something we budget for and plan for, and that'll be part of the capital plan and part of our budget as we look forward. We'll have 2 summers to do that. But whenever we do an abatement activity, that's when children are not present. And we monitor it as well, and we hire an independent agency to do the monitoring while the removal's coming out, so we verify that the capture is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any questions?
I do, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I've just got all the questions. When you do these projects that you mentioned with ADA, is there anything that's not going to be compliant once these pointed out projects were done?
As far as the middle school, like for instance, only one of the 2 classroom bathrooms right now in the classroom wing is compliant based on the current requirements. I'm comfortable in that one of the 2 are, so we have the facilities there. We don't have any ADA compliant restrooms basically in the core. So this lease would provide that in the gym space, which we're envisioning that becomes a facility that we use long term would continue to benefit the community and those who use the space.
Okay, and last question, I promise. Was anything, or did the application speak at all to heating systems, or is that not part?
I'll send you the information on the criteria. Really, they're looking at immediate safety and ADA concerns. They do talk some about ventilation, but I'd have to show that the ventilation we were providing was inadequate. Okay, and one of the things that we do is we keep a close eye on that. We watch that. We do monitor CO2 levels as well as each year. I think you remember we do baseline air quality testing in a school, so I'm on like a 6-year rotation. So we're keeping an eye on that. And I'm not aware of any school area we have right now where we have ventilation issues that I could, with a straight face, put an application together to the DOE saying that this is a deficiency and needs to be repaired. Now, in full disclosure, the middle school unit ventilators are in tough shape. We've actually installed 2 new units this summer that are up and running. I'd love to have you see them. They have ECM motors, and you can barely even hear them run. So it will be a nice, I think, a nice opportunity for us to bridge the gap between a new school and what we have now, and may also be a nice retrofit for Jordan Small. It has a very similar ventilation system.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bill, I have some questions just about the process itself.
Yep.
So on the application, the application's gonna list all these projects,
So there'll be one for each project.
an application for each project,
Correct.
and you don't know the cost of these projects yet, but you have to have the costs when the application's submitted?
Correct. Yes, the costs are starting to come in. I've had different firms working on pulling these numbers together. And there'll be, I have their costs, and then there'll be some costs associated that will be local only, like, for instance, the carpet replacement will not be covered with this, that I'll pull together as well. So that will come to I'll send that to the board as soon as I have the numbers. I mean, in reality, just to give you kind of a range, if all these projects were approved, I'm going to give you a big range because I don't want to be wrong, miss the mark. But everyone approved, you're probably talking somewhere between $1 million and $2 million of projects total. Okay, and So if everyone was approved and our receivership was 30%, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but just say it is, and it was $2 million, we'd be required to pay the $1.4 million back over a 10-year period, would be $140,000 a year. So it's a pretty good way to leverage our funds to do these things. And again, I want to make it really clear that if they were all approved, the board would be the one who had the final say. You could say, no, we're not going to move ahead with that. I'm trying to throw as many stones as I can in the pond, hoping one hits something.
Yeah, that was another question. So all these projects go in, they all get approved or whatever, but then they come to the board and the board says, no, we don't want to do that project for whatever reason.
Yep.
At
That's
that
perfectly
point,
okay.
That's perfectly okay.
Yeah, and that's happened in prior revolving renovation. What ends up happening if you decline, that money would go back and they would go to the next rated project.
All right, when's the deadline for this? I might have missed that.
So the submission of the project is September 30th
At 5 o'clock.
at 5 o'clock in Augusta. And I hope I'm not driving up there at that time.
I think it's also important to remember on this that the $25 million, everyone across the state of Maine is vying for some piece of that $25 million. So there's little to no chance that all of these projects are going to be approved. And Bill's absolutely right. You put as many requests out there, and hopefully they'll go ahead and grab one. Even listening to our architect with, I mean, just one example, Field Allen, it's a question of whether or not code requires it to be sprinkled. And so they may not even look at it as a project because it's grandfathered in because it was prior to sprinklers needed to be there. So we're not even sure all of our projects. But again, Bill's right. It's just unless you ask,
Right.
then you don't know.
I have asked code enforcement and the fire chief to write a letter of support of sprinkling Field Allen, which I do anticipate we would receive to support that project.
All right, my last question, I guess, is I know how you work with your projects and you've got them on timelines, generally looking, a few years ahead. I'm not sure how many projects we have here, but if we weren't submitting for the renovation fund, the revolving renovation fund, when would we have gotten these all done?
That is a great question, and one I didn't anticipate for tonight. So I would tell you this, the asbestos flooring issue I have would be coming up pretty shortly because the carpet, again, is 20 plus years old. And after 20 years, carpets don't clean enough, so they really need to come off. We did remove a carpeted space in Jordan Small 2 years ago, one classroom space. So that would be coming up sooner. The ADA compliant and voice evac for the fire alarm systems, I think that's best practice. And particularly in crisis notification, is one of the things I'm seeing as I go to other facilities, also higher ed, that they have them all set up and they have pre-canned voice evacuation information already in the system, so that if it's severe, whether it's an active shooter, whether it's a lockdown, whatever it is, that as soon as that is activated, that is already going out to everyone who's in the building. So I think that is a priority for me to get done. I'd have to go back and look at the capital plan that I have to give you specific dates. I also want to tell you that the capital plan we put together is a living, breathing document. As we look at the facilities each day, I see a little different gleam and I see changes, and I think it's important that, at least I've learned as I've been here, is that I keep you you all kind of on board as to what I'm seeing and thinking those priorities are shifting and why we're doing that. It's a moving target. So I didn't really answer your question. I'm happy to share with you the capital plan we have it now, but I'll tell you right now it's outdated because I haven't looked at it for about 6 months because I've been getting work done, so things are going to change. I would say a lot of these are on the capital plan because I know I had a pretty big project for phase 3 of Field Allen interior rental. We were going to finish the rest of the work, which was the sprinklers, the new lights, the new suspended ceilings, and the upgraded heating system in each space. So I know that one's on there. I'm just not sure where it is. And as we continue to have challenges with more kids coming in, putting in portables, that's kind of pushing things back as well.
All right, good, thanks.
All right, I'll have a motion, please.
I move to approve the submission of an application to the school revolving renovation fund.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all for your time. It's good to catch up with you, and I look forward to another fun year working with you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, it's now time for the superintendent's report.
Sure, so just thank you to have the opportunity to give a couple updates. So great start to the school year so far. All of our buildings now are finally getting to some routines, and I heard from somebody the other day, you can always tell when kids are kind of hitting a groove when the kindergartners get off the bus and they know where to go. And it seems like the beginning of this week, Monday, it seems like we kind of hit that spot, and kids were self-directed and going where they needed to. But everyone's off to a great start. We're still with some of the construction pieces at Wyndham Primary School, still unpacking boxes and getting things settled in, but we're getting close with that. Also, just want to take this opportunity to thank the community for generosity. I had a call last Friday, from the manager at Staples, that community members in Wyndham and Raymond had been donating and purchasing things, and said, can you come pick the stuff up? And it filled up my entire truck in my back seat with boxes
wow.
of school supplies that the community had donated, and it was fun. It was fun to be able to do that, and then that's gone out to all the different schools. We have a lot of glue, so thank you. Everyone did. And also want to thank those members of the community who have generously given not only money this week, but also some snacks to help out with the snack and the backpack program, recognizing that some of our learners may not be on an even playing field when they come to school, and making sure that they get a snack and a good meal, and all those different things. And we've had some very generous donations this past week, so thank you for that. Greater Sebago Alliance is back up and running. We've had our first meeting, and a couple of things that we're working on that I know would be of interest to this board is for the 11, and actually we're looking to maybe add a 12th district to Greater Sebago Alliance, which is the town of Sebago, is regional special education transportation for out-of-district placements. And so the project is going to be loading addresses without kids' names into a Versatrans sandbox, and looking across the 12 districts, how can we share transportation to some of these outside placements when we're all going there with our vans, and can we reduce the number of miles, looking at basically Cumberland County. So it's a great project, great project to start working on. We're going to be participating in the regional sub-fair that will be taking place in Scarborough, because substitutes are something that we need. That's another Greater Sebago Alliance initiative that's going on. And in addition, doing some regional safety planning. We've done quite a bit of work. I know Bill and Seth Forney or Matt Sear will be here soon to update the board on the safety plans. But other districts are doing some good things as well, and we're looking to get those safety teams together to do some work together this year. Our administrators are participating in the Leadership Academy for Greater Sebago Alliance. They'll have their second session next week, and that's really, it's 5 sessions throughout the year with some individual district coaching, and it's looking at data, much like we talked about programs earlier tonight, and how do you go about looking at the success of those. We're going to be looking at some data models with that. And then lastly, I just thought I'd share probably my favorite moment in the last 3 weeks was visiting down at one of the self-contained programs at Wyndham Primary School, and making a set of Play-Doh teeth and braces with a little non-communicative young person down there, and him sharing some time with me. So it's been a great start. It's been a great start, and it was a great treat to be able to do that.
Great, thank you. Yes?
If I might ask just one
Yes.
question. Thank you.
Ask.
Back to the Sebago Alliance, regarding the sub-fair. Are we on an even playing field as far as what we pay subs? I mean, you have a fair, is everybody paying the same amount, or are they gonna flock to one school district?
From, and it's interesting to say this because I know Lakes Region Weekly just recently did a story, or has a story coming out on regional sub-A rates. And just on the little survey that was done there, we're competitive.
We are?
Yep.
Okay,
With what we're paying.
good.
But this is an opportunity. We're going to be working with South Portland and Scarborough and Gorham and us And it'll be an opportunity be advertised, local papers, come in, you can do an application. Christine and I are going to do interviews for RSU 14. There'll also be other interviews, and subs have the opportunity to put in their applications in different districts. And so just another way to try to attract some subs in and be part of that process.
Any discussion about bus drivers for the Alliance, or is that not an issue?
It's something I'm hesitant to bring up with the Alliance because right now we have just enough drivers.
Okay.
And I don't want anyone taking ours.
Fair enough.
Because we're just at the point where we have enough drivers, we have a few spares, and
Let's not open up the door.
right, let's not open up the door.
Got it. Okay.
Let's not open that up.
Thank
But it's
you.
been a good start.
Okay. It's now time for the board roundtable, and it is, as a reminder, we'll be having this every week, every board meeting now, and it's an opportunity for the board member to address the community, to offer congratulations, school news, suggest agenda items, etc. Okay. And I'm sorry, we decided that I was just going to ask people to raise their hands and not go around, and so you don't have to go, no. So if you have something you'd like to share, please raise your hand. Scott?
Yes.
I know.
So I was having a conversation with Bill earlier today, and I learned that the vaping anti-detection technology has drastically improved since our last workshop. So I think that it is time that maybe we consider doing another workshop, and I guess I've already put the bug in you guys' ears, so you guys will let us know when that workshop can be scheduled, and basically we're going to pick the date as to when it is most convenient for the presenter. I believe that Norris.
Yep.
Okay, and if you can make it, great, and if you can't, well, Janny will be more than happy to take notes.
That's gonna happen. So you're not suggesting a board presentation? This is gonna be similar to the one that some of us went to the last time?
I think
At
that
the
would
high school.
probably be best if we could just do somewhat of a workshop.
Show and
Instead
tell,
of-
and a
yeah.
presentation. of
That
show
way
and
we
tell.
don't have to schedule cameras and video feed and stuff like that. And then we're not locked down to, it would have to be a first or a third Wednesday. And then we can also maybe do it on site if that works for other people. I think there's more options available for a board workshop. At least that is my recommendation.
I agree. Okay, would anyone else have something they'd like to share? Or,
Chime in.
yes?
It's just little, it's just, I got to watch the Jordan Small Middle School soccer teams, a couple of games. Actually, the girls and the boys just had their, I think it's their third game in like the first week. So between last week and this week, and they both have games again on Friday. So they play Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. It's been really, really cool to see their dedication to it and the progress, how well they've done from the first game to the third one today, and it's exciting to be part of it. Exciting to get to watch. Miss Basler's the coach for the girls for the first time this year, and she's really been amazingly supportive and super fun for the kids to have. So that's super cool. Congratulations to all the kids doing that. I just also wanted to give a shout out to one of our own community members. I got to go to the Maine Women's Conference today, and our own Karina Benke was there giving a self-defense for the women there. So that was super, super neat to get to see. And I wanted to just thank Chris. We had, I'm sure you guys talked about it at a meeting I didn't make, but the opening of the playground at Jordan Small, or excuse me, Raymond Elementary, my kids came home like, Mom, the superintendent was there. So that was a really cool thing, and I think it's, one of the first times they've heard that and seen that. So thank you. It was an important gesture, and it was really cool for them to see. So.
Yes, sir.
I I did think of something.
See if I talk long enough.
Yeah, absolutely. It is sports related too. There was an article in the Portland Press Herald recently talking about the rise in popularity of volleyball in high schools. And in the middle school level, we have volleyball, but it's a club activity. And I would be interested in talking to Rich or having Rich talk to the board about the possibility of making that a school sport at the middle school level. Because right now parents pay for it and so forth. But yeah, I mean, if it is becoming so popular in high schools, we might want a nice little feeder system going in. I know that our field hockey program's great at the lower levels, and our high school team's having some real good success this year in field hockey, which
Right.
they haven't in the past. And Corey DiDonato's doing a great job leading all of that with the clubs and with the clinics in the summer and so forth. So, just something that we might want to explore.
It's on the list. I was happy to get an email. I'm sure we all got an email from Randy Crockett saying that he walked around and saw that 90 students were participating in after-school activities, and that's half of Jordan Small Middle School. So that's a really, really exciting thing. The other thing I want to say is that I had my car washed this weekend at the car wash for the dance, the Maine Academy of Dance, or Maine Dance
Center.
Academy. I don't know. I'm sorry. I
My daughter
apologize.
goes there and I can't
Yeah,
pronounce the name, I'm sorry.
And the reason I have to say it is two special students that I had when they were in first grade and second grade were the people that washed my car. But the people that dried my car, one was a young lady from Wyndham Primary School, and one was a young lady from Raymond Elementary School, and they said, "We're friends, and we like to dance together," and that just that was just really nice. It made me feel good. So that's it. Okay. Yes, Dawn?
I was just, after everybody talks now, I can think of some things to say. I'm also following the girls' high school soccer, and my daughter's in that. And I'm also thrilled with my exchange student. She's from Latvia. She's a junior, and she's wonderful. And she's getting involved. She's going to try out for cheerleading. She's involved with the drama club. And today she got to go kayaking. And she's like, "Thank you so much for even suggesting that in my, she was afraid to try it, and now she's so happy."
Oh, that's great.
So I love the programs that the high school has, and everybody's really off to a good start at the high school as well.
Marge?
This is short. Do we have a high school representative for the board yet?
High school's still settling in on that. We'll have one soon.
Whoa, okay. Could I have a motion to enter into executive session, please?
I move to enter into executive session to discuss the superintendent's evaluation pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056A and not return to regular meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.